To conquer the world, Alexander first had to conquer the mind. After taming Bucephalus, Philip II knew his son was destined for more than just the battlefield, but steel alone wouldn't build an empire. Wisdom would. So Philip summoned a philosopher, not just any teacher, but Aristotle, the greatest mind of the age, a student of Plato and heir to the wisdom of Socrates. The great halls of Mieza, far from the dust of battle, became Alexander's second arena. Under the shade of ancient trees, beside rippling rivers, Aristotle spoke of worlds unseen, the movement of the stars, the balance of nature, the ethics of kingship. But Alexander's eyes didn't always follow the lectures. His gaze drifted to the Iliad, the epic of Achilles, the hero who chose glory over peace. And when Aristotle taught philosophy, Alexander listened. But when he spoke of Achilles, Alexander leaned in closer. "You must understand," Aristotle said, "it is one thing to fight like Achilles, but another to rule like a philosopher." Yet Alexander, even as a boy, hungered for both. He slept with a dagger under his pillow, and beside it, a copy of the Iliad. A mind sharpened by philosophy, a heart stirred by myth, and a hand ready for the sword. Alexander wasn't just learning how to think. He was preparing to rule. He debated ethics, studied medicine, learned languages, and memorized the histories of Persia, long before he would face them in battle. And Aristotle, sensing the ambition in his young pupil, planted seeds that would later shake the world. "When you conquer," he warned, "conquer not only with the sword, but with the mind." But Alexander, even then, may have already known. The sword speaks louder. Every great throne demands blood, and Alexander's began in betrayal. By 336 BCE, Philip II of Macedonia stood on the edge of a new empire. He had united the Greek city-states, crushed his enemies, and set his sights on Persia, the richest prize the world had ever known. But even as he prepared to cross the sea, the cracks beneath his kingdom widened. At his side was a new wife, Cleopatra Eurydice, a young Macedonian noblewoman barely older than Alexander himself. Their union was political, meant to secure loyalty from the Macedonian elite. But it threatened Olympias, Alexander's mother, and Alexander himself. If Cleopatra bore a pure-blood Macedonian heir, Alexander's path to the throne could be wiped away. Tensions boiled beneath the surface, like a storm waiting to break. Then came the wedding at Aegae, not for Philip, but for his daughter Cleopatra, from a previous marriage, married off to Alexander of Epirus, Olympias' own brother. A political alliance stitched together with bloodlines and daggers beneath the smiles. Philip walked proudly through the crowded theater, wearing a white cloak, unarmored, unguarded. But one man moved faster than the cheers. Pausanias of Orestes, a former bodyguard, wronged, humiliated. Some say Philip's general, Attalus, uncle to Philip's new wife, had assaulted Pausanias, and Philip turned a blind eye. Others say Olympias stoked his rage, whispered poison into his ears. But whatever the cause, Pausanias drew his blade. The crowd gasped. Philip staggered, clutching his chest as the steel pierced his ribs, collapsing before his kingdom's eyes. And just like that, the architect of an empire lay dead in the dirt. Guards struck down Pausanias, but the questions survived. Did Olympias orchestrate it to protect her son? Did Alexander know? Or was it simply revenge, cloaked in opportunity? No answers, only shadows. At just 20 years old, Alexander stood at the head of a fractured kingdom, where enemies circled like vultures, and loyalty was bought in blood. But Alexander didn't flinch. When Thebes rose in rebellion, testing the new king's resolve, he marched without mercy. In a single week, Thebes burned, its walls torn down, its people scattered, its name wiped from the map. Only one house was spared, the home of Pindar, the poet. Because Alexander knew words can outlive empires. The message was clear: defy me, and you will become a memory. Greece bowed in silence. Alexander's shadow stretched long, and his gaze turned east toward Persia. Greece was silent. Macedonia was his. Now, Alexander turned his eyes to the empire that had haunted Greek dreams for generations: Persia. The vast ancient empire of kings, from Cyrus the Great to Darius III, a realm so large that the sun never set upon it. For centuries, Persian armies had marched into Greek lands, burned cities like Athens, and demanded tribute from proud city-states. Philip II had dreamed of vengeance, but now it would be Alexander's war. He was not content to defend Greece. He would take the fight to the heart of the world. In the spring of 334 BCE, Alexander assembled an army, a mere 35,000 men, dwarfed by the might of Persia. Yet among them marched some of the finest warriors ever trained, the Macedonian phalanx, locked behind walls of sarissas, the companion cavalry, fierce and fast, and seasoned veterans who had followed Philip to victory. Alexander himself led from the front, not behind gilded thrones or shaded litters like Persian kings. Before crossing into Asia, he made a stop at Troy, the ancient city of myth, where Achilles had fought and fallen. Standing on the windswept plain, Alexander honored Achilles' tomb, laying a wreath and offering sacrifices to the spirit of the hero he admired most. Some say he whispered into the grave, "Fortunate are you, Achilles, to have lived and died with glory." Alexander wasn't just stepping onto a battlefield. He was stepping into legend. With the Aegean Sea behind him, Alexander's army crossed the Hellespont, the narrow strip of water separating Europe from Asia. As he landed, it is said, he leapt ashore fully armed, hurling his spear into the ground and proclaiming, "I take this land by right of conquest." Persia had awakened an enemy like no other, and the world, though it did not yet know it, was about to change forever. History isn't just what happened. It's the heartbeat of who we are. If this story inspired you, taught you something new, or gave you something to think about, drop a comment and let your voice echo through time. Subscribe for more stories you've never heard, but will never forget. And if you believe in keeping history alive, you can support the journey on Patreon or Ko-fi, links in the description below. Every bit of support helps bring more forgotten stories back to life. May the echo of history unite us.